to the Covered Podcast. I am your host, Maya Karen, where we discuss women and how we are showing up in the world. Although she needs no introduction, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Nona Jones is a woman with many talents. She is a motivational speaker. She travels the world and she empowers women. Nona is a wife, a mother, a woman of God, and a best-selling author. Please welcome Nona.
Hello, how are you doing?
Thank you so much, Nona, for having this conversation and your willingness to have this open and honest conversation. So, you are known in many circles, you are very successful, and you are known for many things. But what some might not know about you is that you got a BBL, which is also known as a Brazilian butt lift. I
Yep.
wanted to have this conversation because this is still very prevalent. We
Mhm.
have women, we even have young women who are looking for a certain aesthetic. They are looking for attention, they are looking for love, they are looking for validation, and they are looking for acceptance from external sources. They are not looking within and they are not talking to the man upstairs. So I just wanted to have this conversation with you. I remember in another conversation or another interview because I kind of want to set the stage. It seems like to me it's very important for people to understand what brought you to getting your BBL. So I
Right.
remember in one conversation, you were talking about how your mother did not want children, but I also remember you talking about how within your childhood, there were some very traumatic things that happened to you. So I just kind of want to
Mhm.
start there. But I do also want to say that we do have some young listeners here on this podcast. So if you
Mhm.
are that young listener, please, in this beginning of this conversation, please listen with an adult, a guardian, someone that you trust so you can ask questions. Or if you have experience what Nona is getting ready to talk about, please seek help. So, Nona, the stage is yours.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I so enjoy the opportunity to get to talk about my life and get to talk about the things I've learned as a result of the decisions that I've made. And so I will absolutely get to the BBL in a minute. But as you referenced, I had a very challenging childhood. I am an only child. And my mother's boyfriend assaulted me at the age of 5 and repeatedly abused me for years. And I was about maybe 7 years old when I finally worked up the courage to tell my mom what was happening. And she had him arrested for what he did. And I thought that everything was over. I thought it was done. But on the day of his release from jail, she took me with her to pick him up and brought him back home. And so the abuse basically picked up where it left off. And my mom, she became physically abusive. She became verbally abusive. So it was just a really, really, really challenging time for me, so much so that I tried to end my life at the ages of both 9 and 11. I didn't have language for it then, but I do now. I've even written a book about it. But I experienced such severe rejection, abandonment, abuse, shame. There was so much that I experienced in childhood, and a lot of it stemmed from the belief that I wasn't worthy of love. I mean, I looked at my mother, who was my primary caregiver, and the decisions that she made by essentially choosing my abuser over me. And
Yes.
that kind of created like a primary identity fracture where I saw myself as disposable, I saw myself as unwanted. And I think that became really the ground, that became the soil that my adult identity grew in. So yes, I was very successful. I had a lot of success in my career from an early age. I was appointed to an executive role at the age of 23. My career kind of went up into the right, ending in a C-level role for a major tech company. And all of that was great. But I've said this so many times as I have traveled around the world, success does not inoculate you against insecurity. People think that insecurity is a function of self-esteem. And so they think, well, if you just think better of yourself, then you will not be insecure. But in fact, insecurity is not about self esteem. It's really a question of what is your identity secured to? What do you derive your sense of worth from? What do you define yourself by? And for my purposes, I took my worth from achievements and accomplishments. I took my worth from compliments, from being wanted by men before I was married, and of course by friends wanting to be invited, wanting to be included included. So there was all of these kind of external markers, which I think really lent themselves to ultimately making the decision to get that procedure. Now, I should say, from a young age, from a very young age, I was made fun of because my butt was always like flat, you know. And as a Black woman, we're expected to be voluptuous and have curves and all
Yes.
of this. Well, I did not have any curves at all. And so I had a very deep sensitivity to the fact that people made fun of me having a flat booty. And so by the time I got old enough to be able to actually buy a booty, I decided that's what I'm going to do because I essentially wanted to rid my mind and my heart of the voices from my past that were telling me that I wasn't pretty, I wasn't good enough. And so, between that and the shame from childhood, I felt like if I just get this procedure, then that will fix everything. Well, as I was actually flying to Los Angeles to get this procedure done, I heard the Holy Spirit say, like audibly heard the Holy Spirit say, if I wanted you to have a booty, I would have given you a booty. I didn't give you a booty to keep you humble. And
I
I was
remember
just
you from
like,
your interview. I remember
yeah,
you
I
because
was
that was
like,
going to be
well,
my next question because you
yeah,
talked about you're going to be, well, Lord, I'm going to be humble with the booty.
yeah.
What
I
does
was
that
like,
mean?
I'm going to be humble with a booty.
What did so when you said that, and I know that there was a lot of mental gymnastics that came with that.
Mhm.
But when you said that you were going to be humble with a booty, what did you mean by that? Did you mean you weren't going to be showing it off? Did you mean
No, it wasn't
what does
even
that
that.
mean?
I just basically meant that because I would say that I have always been a humble person in that I was never one to be like, give me the credit, give me the thing. Like I was never one to be like super like a show off or anything like that. So I just assumed that getting this procedure, I would stay that way. I would still be the type of person that was able to share credit. I would still be the type of person that like liked to work with teams and all of that. But I felt like I just wouldn't have that physical deficiency because in my mind, it was not only a physical deficiency, but it made me deficient as a woman. And so that's what I meant is I'm not going to let this thing change me. I'll still be the same. But what the Lord knew and what I now know is that wasn't the case because as soon as I got the procedure, it's almost like I definitely did not become arrogant. It wasn't that, but it was
Okay.
almost like I I felt like, okay, now I'm good. Now I'm okay because I had this procedure. It wasn't that I felt like I was good because I knew the Lord, or I felt like I was good because He had, when I was His enemy, He had chosen me and loved me. No, it's like I needed the procedure to make me feel okay. But funny enough, within, I don't know, not maybe 8 months at the most, because I'm a runner. When I first got the procedure, my doctor said, you're going to have to stop working out as vigorously as you do because it's a fat transfer procedure. And if you keep working out that vigorously, you're going to burn off the fat. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be unhealthy and have a booty. So I decided I was going to run. I was going to keep doing what I was doing. And yeah, within about 8 months, I burned it off. So it was a waste of time, a waste of money. And it was basically just disobedient. God told me not to do it. But I figured if only I could get this thing, then I'll finally matter.
Wow. That and I remember you also talked about in one interview, you actually found, I believe it's the Kardashians' plastic
Mhm.
surgeon. Is
Yeah.
that that's who did your procedure?
Yeah, now I should say they have many plastic surgeons, but the one who, specifically, specializes in that procedure, yes, I found him. I did some investigation, so I found out who it was.
Okay. So you're on the plane
Mhm,
and you already told the Lord that you were going to be humble with the booty.
mhm.
At this point, because we now know that the BBL, aka the Brazilian butt lifts, is actually one of the most dangerous surgeries that you can
Mhm.
get. I'm pretty sure you had done your research.
Yep.
You had found the Kardashians' doctor. At this point, when you were sitting on the plane, did you actually know anyone that had any complications with the procedure, or you just you didn't care?
Well, I didn't so here's the thing, like, I didn't know anyone who had had the procedure at all. Like, it
Okay.
was basically just me kind of, seeing on Instagram, like people who had this procedure. Like that's basically where I saw it from. I had never heard of it in real life. So
Okay.
no, I never knew of anyone that had any complications. Plus, many times the complications that I've heard of have come from kind of sketchy situations where
Mhm.
somebody maybe
Yes.
went out of the country to get the procedure, or maybe they went down the street to somebody's house to do
Yes.
the procedure. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so I wasn't as worried about that. But on the other side of it, I recognized just how it was disobedient to God, and his design. Like again, if he wanted me to have that, he could have given it to me. There was a reason that he didn't. And I think going through that process was good because now I do have the ability to kind of speak to the motivations behind it. It isn't, I think some people think that it's just vanity. Like, oh, people want
Okay.
to get that because of vanity. No, a lot of times people get that procedure because they have been made to feel like they are less than because they don't have this thing. And so it ends up being a response to insecurity. And that's at the base of it. It's not just, oh, this person just wants to look good. It's like, no, they've been made to believe that they don't look good. And so they're getting this because they think that that will somehow fix a deficiency that they believe that they have. And so that's more at the identity level.
Okay. And that does make a lot of sense. I do want to bring up two topics. So the first one, kind of like a hot topic, I think this was a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if it popped up on your feed, but it popped up on mine. There was a young lady, I believe it was on TikTok. She went viral because she talked about how she was going to get a Christian BBL.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with
I
this?
am not. No, I've not heard that at
Okay.
all.
So it was a young lady, basically, she wanted a BBL. She wanted it really badly. And just like you were talking about, it stemmed from insecurities. She called it a Christian BBL. Now, I'm going to assume the reason why she was calling it a Christian BBL is because she was still going to be covered.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
That is very interesting. I had not heard of that at all. I think I will just say in general, we have to be really, really, really careful about attaching the label Christian
Yeah.
to a thing, right?
Okay.
Because what that almost does is it puts our faith in a secular context. And so there because the word Christian in and of itself, it's two parts. Christ, of course, Jesus Christ, and then the suffix IAN, which means of or belonging to. So that word Christian means belonging to Christ. And so in order to have a Christian anything, that thing has to belong to Christ. So even when we say things, I'll just use the political context because it's so salient right now. When we say the party of Christians, we're saying that this party belongs to Christ. But unless that party's platform is literally like precept by precept, line by line, the holy word of God, it is not a Christian political party. So I would say that idea of having a Christian BBL becomes a challenge because now we're basically saying that this surgical procedure is of or belonging to Christ. And so I would not say that that necessarily goes together. Now, you can be a Christian getting a cosmetic procedure, but I would not say that that makes the cosmetic procedure itself Christian.
That makes sense. It was just, I just wanted to hear your thoughts
Sure.
because when she put on the Christian part, I know for myself, typically when people think of BBLs, when people think of Brazilian butt lifts, they start going with the TikTok and the Instagram baddies.
Sure.
And they're not typically covered and do not typically have the best intentions.
Mm,
Now, another one that I want to talk about, this is actually from the Daily Mail. This happened in September. Very
mhm,
unfortunate situation. I'm not sure if you've heard about it. There was a young lady, and there's a little bit of conflicting information, but I want to bring it up because it's what we're talking about. It was a young lady. She was turning either 14 or 15. It was for her birthday. Her mother allowed her boyfriend, a plastic or her boyfriend was a plastic surgeon. She allowed her daughter, like I said, there's conflicting information for either a butt lift or for a breast augmentation.
hmm.
The young lady had severe complications and she died. And
Wow.
I wanted to bring that up because just like you were talking about the insecurity and just like I was talking about the young women, I'm
Yeah.
trying to get in the mind frame of the mother who would
Mm,
allow her 14-year-old daughter to do something like that. And I'm just
mm,
that to me, the fact that she lost her life, she was willing to risk her daughter's life
yeah,
for an aesthetic. And you were talking about insecurities.
yeah.
So my question to you is because you said the first time that you heard about it was on Instagram.
Mhm.
How much did social media play a role outside of the insecurity and outside of the stereotype of, Black women having bodies? I've been
Yeah,
skinny my entire life.
yeah.
How much did social media play a role into your decision to get a BBL?
Oh, a ton. And let me also say, I did not hear about that story, but I could imagine. So I have two boys; they're 15 and
Yes.
12, and I could imagine that as her mom. I don't have any daughters, but part of what probably motivated her to let that happen was the insecurities of our children. As parents, we don't want our children to hurt. We just
Right.
don't. And so I imagine that a lot of that went into her calculus as it came to making that decision for her daughter. And so my heart goes out to her because I can only imagine just the trauma that she's experiencing having lost her daughter in that type of a way. I definitely think social media is a huge culprit for what I have called the crisis of insecurity
Yes.
in society. There was a time I was talking to somebody earlier today. I was like, there was a time where when we got out of school, and it was summer break, we didn't know what anybody else was doing. Like we didn't know until we went back to school, and then we
Yes.
found out that a couple of our friends, maybe went out of town or they stayed home or whatever. Like we didn't know. But now there is this sense that everybody is living the most amazing life at all times. Like everybody is taking these amazing trips. They're meeting these incredible people. They're getting these new homes and cars. And oh my gosh, they're losing all this weight. And they're just like, you can get to a place where you go on social media and you just feel like you and your life sucks. And I think that's because everybody shares their highlight reel. Everyone's
Yes.
constantly sharing their highlight reel. And if you don't know that about social media, then you will assume that something is wrong with you. And having worked in social media for 6 years, I worked in that industry. Even I fell, subject to that because I'm like, wow, look at how amazing everybody looks. And then you look in the mirror and you're just like, look at how I don't look like that. Let me see what I can do about it. So I think that we have to be really proactive about guarding our hearts and our minds, even against what I call the fiction of social media, because it isn't real. People just post the highlight reels. They post the day they got engaged. They don't post about the day they got divorced. I've seen people, and I'm asked about their husbands or their wives, and they're like, oh, yeah, we got divorced. I'm like, I didn't know that. Like, you never posted that. I just
Right.
saw the wedding pictures and you go back to their profile and now the spouse is missing and all of a sudden like you didn't even know. Same with getting the new house. Nobody posts the day they got evicted. You post you got the new car. You don't post the day it got repossessed. And so you end up with this distorted idea that your life is not as good. So I think we just have to know that what we see on social media is not real and we have to not base our reality on other people's fiction. And so I definitely fell victim to that, my own self. If I had it to do all over again, I would have never gotten that procedure. But I did not have the strength of identity that I have now then. And so I don't judge myself for it because I
Mhm.
made the decision that I thought was right for me. And I also look at other people who make that decision. I don't judge them either because I know what that's like to look at yourself and think, if only I get this thing, then I'll matter. Some people have, I call it the career equivalent of a BBL. They think if I just get this promotion,
Okay.
then I'll matter. Other people have the relational equivalent. If I can just be with this person, then I'll matter. Like at the end of the acquisition of a thing is the idea, well, if I get that, then I'll matter. And that is the lie. The thing isn't the lie. It's the belief that once I get the thing, then I'll matter.
So it's the intention behind it, or the
Absolutely.
intention behind what you are seeking.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because you think that that thing is going to complete you. You think it's going to fulfill you. And the only thing that will complete you, the only thing that will fill you is the relationship that you have with the Lord. That's basically it. At the end of the day, there is nothing that sustains apart from, and that's why he even tells us, he says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. once you pursue the kingdom of God, you realize just how trivial all this other stuff is.
Absolutely. Okay, so within that time span, you were on the plane, you got your BBL, you said, I
Mhm.
believe, 8 months, and then you were back to a pancake.
Right, right.
Within those 8 months, was it everything you thought it was going to be?
Not really. Like, at first, getting the procedure and kind of looking at the results, I was like, all right, yes, finally. But I think as the days went by, and that's why I say, the acquisition of stuff doesn't heal what's broken within
Right.
So after maybe a couple of weeks, I still had to grapple with the idea that, hey, I'm not enough. I still had to wrestle with the fact that my mom chose her boyfriend over me. I still had to wrestle with the different failures and disappointments and discouragements. None of that went away just because of the procedure that I had. So, yeah, it didn't really change much at all, but I just assumed that it would. That's why I paid for it. And that ended up being the lie.
So essentially, it was a band-aid.
You know what? I don't even know if I would call it a Band-Aid. Like I would say it was a topical treatment,
Okay.
like you just sometimes put the little what's it called?
Is it
Neosporin.
bacitracin or the yes.
Like Neosporin, you kinda put that on there and but you're gonna have to keep putting the Neosporin on there. It's not just a one and done. Yeah, I would say it was a topical treatment that did not fix the wound and it did not heal the infection because that was insecurity. And there's nothing that you can accumulate around you. There's nothing you can do to yourself that's going to fix what's broken within yourself. That was my revelation.
Okay. And then as far as the procedure itself, because like we talked about earlier, we've all heard about the complications. What was the experience? Did you have any complications? What was
I
the
didn't have any
recovery process?
complications. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't. The doctor was good. His team was good. I paid probably 3 times more than most people pay, but that's because I wanted to go to the best, to get the safest, to do all that. I wasn't willing. I know there are some people who they just pay like a few $1,000s, and it's like
Yes.
no, he was not cheap at all. I literally could have bought a brand new car for how much
Wow.
that cost. But I wanted to make sure that if I was going to do it, that was my first surgical procedure. I'd never had surgery before, and so I wanted to make sure that it was someone who was reputable. So I was willing to pay for it.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't have any complications, thankfully.
Okay. At this time, were you married?
Yes.
Were married. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the conversation? Was this just you woke up one day, y'all are having pillow talk? Guess what, honey? I'm getting a BBL. What was
So
the
I
conversation?
Here's what's funny about this question. So my husband, of course, when he met me, I didn't have a booty. It was just
Pancake?
me, right? Yeah, pancake situation. But he loved me and he married me. So he never like asked for me to do anything like that. So when I even brought it up to him, he was just like, "Why? You're beautiful. Like why do you want that? Why do you need that?" And it was hard to explain because when you've never been made fun of for something that you can actually change, you just can't relate. But I got to a place where I was able to convince him, and he said, "Well, honey, look, if it's going to make you happy, then, I'll support you." He was like, "But I just don't think you need it." And so he supported me just because he
Okay.
wanted me to be happy. But even throughout the whole process, and thank God, even after losing the whole thing, he was still like, "Look, you're just as beautiful to me now as you were when I met you. So it's fine."
Was there any because you said that he wanted you to be happy. Was your husband, I'm pretty sure he was, but just for the audience, is your husband aware of your background? Was he aware of what happened to you?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
he knows.
So I guess, and even with himself, maybe he wasn't thinking maybe therapy or maybe you should talk to someone before you take this big step. He just wanted you to be happy.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I think in our community specifically, at least at that time, therapy wasn't a big like
Right.
conversation.
It's
It
still
wasn't
taboo. Yes.
yeah, it was something that people did, but you just didn't think about it. So yeah, it never even occurred to me to go talk to somebody about how I was feeling. I just figured, well, this will be the solution,
Okay.
and then everything will be okay. And so yeah, that wasn't even a talking point.
Okay. So as far as your husband, career wise, I believe he's a pastor.
Yeah, yeah, he's a
Okay.
pastor.
So that means you are a first lady, or
Yes.
you were at one point.
Yes.
Did anybody at what was the talk? Did anyone notice? Did anybody say anything? Was there any judgment? Were people even aware?
So there were a few people who were aware,
Okay.
but not like it wasn't like a big widespread thing. I shared it with like a couple of people, but I
Okay.
also didn't get like a big bubble butt where people would be like, "Whoa, she went from flat to huge." It wasn't that. I did more of like a subtle change. I just wanted to like
Okay.
add a little something to me. So, I also dressed relatively conservatively, so people didn't really notice. So there wasn't really talk like that. But I did tell a few people that I was getting it done, and I told them why. Hey, I've basically lived my life dealing with being called names because of my flat booty, and now I have the ability to change that. So I want to do it, and so people supported me.
People supporting. Okay.
Mhm.
So looking back, because I know earlier you were talking about when I referenced the Christian BBL and you
Yeah.
talked about secular. Do you think, looking back, that some of the people that you told, the reason why they supported you is because it's just so mainstream, even within, unfortunately, the church, even with even within the Christian world?
I don't know if it was that. I think they understood.
Okay.
I think when you have, so for example, let's say that you have a really large nose and you've been made fun of your whole life. You've been called snuffleupagus, you've been called mastodon, you've been called all types of names. And then you get older and you have the capacity to get some sort of procedure to like make it normal. Most people wouldn't say, "You're wrong for that. You need to love the nose that you have." People wouldn't do that. They would just be like, "Go girl, whatever makes you happy," especially if that's an area of insecurity and you can do something about it, then have at it. But you will still need to deal with the underlying beliefs that you're ugly, because that doesn't go away just because you change something physically. The beliefs that we have in our heart are not necessarily excised just because we make a physical change. And so, yeah, I didn't get any blowback. I think people just understood because everybody had their own insecurities too.
And I'm glad that you made that distinction because I was thinking, you were going to go from a pancake to like a Beyonce or a
Oh,
Nicki
no, no,
Minaj. So, so
no. Like even now that it's gone, my husband tells me he doesn't really notice a difference. And I totally notice the difference. But he says he doesn't really notice the difference because it wasn't super drastic.
it wasn't super drastic.
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad that you said that because, like I said, I was just having this image of going from a pancake to all of a
No,
sudden like Nicki Minaj, and I
not at
can't think of
all.
the other one's name. Now, when it comes to this time when you have your BBL, and you just say that you were a first lady, a lot of times within our community, especially if someone has a procedure, whether it's a breast augmentation, a BBL, or they lose weight, they have this new body and they kind of want to show it off. Did you find that your dressing got maybe a little bit more revealing or suggestive, or you were wanting to wear a different type of clothing?
It wasn't so much that my dress got more revealing or suggestive. I think that because my proportions changed a bit, my clothes, the way they fit changed
Okay.
a bit. And so I had to become a little more conscious of that, which was okay, well, there's certain skirts that I may not be able to wear the way that I could before because it might draw more attention. And I just became a little bit more intentional about what I wore and how I wore it.
You talked about being humbled with a booty. You talked
Mhm.
about you had it for 8 months, but in your book, you talked about rejection
Oh, yeah.
and how the rejection with the BBO. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because you talked about the insecurity, but you also talked about the rejection and you talked about if God wanted you to have a booty,
Mhm.
he would have given you one.
Yeah. Well, I think it gets back to what I said before about, the beliefs that you have in your heart don't change just because you make a physical modification. The thoughts that I had even before the procedure were, I'm not pretty, I'm not wanted, I'm not good enough. And those were things that had been spoken over me as a child. Those were
Yes.
things that had been said to me by my mom. I had some of those experiences with other adults in my life, even kids making fun of me. And so, that really, I think, built just a rejection wound that I had hoped the procedure would fix. But again, physical modifications don't adjust your heart's beliefs. And that was something I didn't know either until after I did the procedure. And so now part of my ministry is trying to help people understand that. When you have your identity very secured in who God says that you are less vulnerable to the lies of the enemy. You are less vulnerable to even people's opinions about you, saying that you're not good enough, you're ugly, nobody wants you, you'll never be anything. Once you know who you are and you know that before you were formed in the womb, God knew you and called you and set you apart, when you know that for real, you are able to withstand rejection because you know that God can work it together for your good and for his glory. And so those are things I didn't know. Those are things I know now, but I didn't know them then. Had I known them then, I would have absolutely made different choices because, again, I was trying to fix a heart wound with a physical modification because I didn't know that those things weren't correlated.
Far as the, I guess you could say the head, the light bulb that went off on your head when you said that this is not right. Did it take for you to actually lose the booty or being humble with a booty? Or was there actually something that happened that led you to say, this is not right? I'm not really sure why I did this.
No, it was probably after I lost it because during that time, it's like I said, I for the first couple of weeks, like, I felt really good. I was like, "All right, fine," I'm my clothes fit better, like, things look better, um, but I still had to deal with all of the residue from the past rejection and the past pain and the name calling, and I still had to deal with that. That didn't go away just because my clothes fit better, and so I think within the first couple of weeks, maybe the first month, that's when I had the realization that, "Oh, this didn't actually fix anything." So by the time it was gone, I had already come to that realization, and so I knew that I had to do deeper work, and that's what I started to do.
Okay. And the deeper work, I know that you were talking to the Lord, but did you also have to go to therapy?
So I had not done therapy at that point. I started writing my book, Killing Comparison, shortly after that because I reflected on the fact that really the reason why I even got that procedure is because I was comparing myself to other people and I wanted to measure up in their eyes, even though I was already very successful.
Yes.
I already had the dream home, I had the great kids and the marriage, and like I
And the
had the
husband.
things.
Yes, you had everything. Yes.
Yeah, but I felt like I was lacking in this one area because, as we said earlier, I'm looking on social media at these women who have these amazing bodies, and I'm just like, wow, that's not me. Even at the time, I had lost like 100 pounds just through eating right and working out, but I still felt like I was lacking. And so it was going through the journey of figuring out where that lie came from
Okay.
that led me to writing Killing Comparison because I realized that so much of insecurity is a derivative of comparing ourselves to other people, which is why the Bible says don't do it. You can either be inspired by looking at somebody else or you can feel defeated by looking at somebody else. And I was in a place of feeling defeated, and that just was not God's best for me.
Okay. So you started writing the book. At one point or at any point, did you go to therapy? Because I know you didn't.
No, mm-mm.
Okay. So you,
No,
you
the
just talked to
Lord
the Lord.
yeah, yeah. So since I was a child, I've had just a really strong sense of discernment. I've had a
Okay.
really sharp ear for the words of the Lord. And so this is because I didn't grow up in the church, but the Lord has just been an ever present presence for me. And I've heard his audible voice my entire life. And so what some people might have needed therapy for, I was really able to hear the wisdom of the Lord about. So even,
Okay.
I did do a therapy session. This was, I think, December of 2023. I went to do it. It was like a 3-day intensive, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the therapist and I'm sharing my life, sharing the things that I've learned and, insights that I have just about things, the choices I've made. And he even said, he was just like, I've been in this practice. He's a psychologist. I've been in this practice for, decades now. And he said, it's amazing just how much self-awareness you have. He said it's
Wow.
that's
Okay.
very, very rare. And that is truly a testament to the Lord and how he has been just speaking to me my entire life.
That is absolutely amazing. I do remember in one of your interviews you talked about, because you just spoke about discernment, even when you first met the man
Mhm.
from your traumatic experience, you said that you did not like him.
Mm-mm.
That was instant.
Mhm. Yeah, he scared me. And I
Okay.
told my mom that, and she was like, "Oh, give him a chance. He's a nice guy." But I just knew something was wrong with him.
You
And
knew
so that's
something was
something that
wrong.
has been with me my entire life is just, and I will tell you, it's both a blessing and a challenge because I find myself knowing things that I don't even wanna know. Like, there are things that
Okay.
I know where I'm like, "Oh gosh," because I wanna enjoy the moment or I wanna enjoy the person, and the Lord will show me some things, and I'm just like, "Ugh, now I can't enjoy this."
Now you can't enjoy it.
And so, yeah, discernment is a gift, but it can also be a challenge.
Okay. So you didn't really go to therapy. You have always had this wonderful bond with the Lord, but you did say that you did go to like that 3 day
Yeah.
intensive. In order for you to either move on or in order for you to get past that, did you have to or have you forgiven your mother for choosing that man over you?
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
forgiveness is, it is crucial to healing. It's not
Yes.
optional.
Okay.
But I think where we sometimes get things wrong is we get things out of sequence. So we want people who have experienced trauma to immediately forgive their offender when before you can even forgive someone, there are some steps that you have to take. Like the first thing you have to be able to do is you have to be able to process the offense. Like you have
Okay.
to be able to sit with it, think about what happened, how do you feel, give actual language to how you feel about it. Many times we don't even know how to describe how we feel. So knowing how to describe how you feel, and then we have to be able to make meaning of the situation. And that sometimes requires a bit of time to process it, to give language to how you feel, and to be able to provide meaning for it. And then after you've processed it, you need to be able to express how you feel to God in a very real, raw way. Not, curated, not praying these pretty prayers like, oh Lord, it's okay, bless them. I pray that you bless their territory. No, you need to be able to get before God and be like, this was wrong. I didn't like this. I didn't want to experience this. I don't even feel like I deserved this. I'm writing a book right now. This is my next book where I'm talking about how to heal your heart when someone's not sorry for hurting you. And a
Mm.
part of that is being able to pray honestly before the Lord. David did that. There's 150 Psalms. David wrote like half of them. And a third of the Psalms that he wrote are called precatory Psalms. These are Psalms where he's praying for vindication, where he's praying for God to take out his offender. Like he's praying very honestly before the Lord. And he always ends these prayers with saying, and Lord, you are my shelter. Like you are my refuge. I place my trust in you. So we process our offense, we express our anger to God. And then we have to trust that God will repay. Paul says this. He says, don't return evil for evil, leave room for God's wrath. We have to trust that God will repay. And then once we do all of that, then we make space to forgive. We want to just rush to forgiveness, and that's why you have so many people who are still bitter after 20
Mm.
years of an offense because they never processed it, they never expressed their anger to God, they don't trust that God will repay, and so they're not able to trade their hurt for the rest that Jesus promises them. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. Come to me, all you are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Well, we can't do that if we don't even go to Him. We pick up the phone and call everybody and tell them what the person did, and
Yes.
rehearse what they did, and we never process it. So yeah, there's a path and there's a sequence. So I had to go through all of that to get to a place of forgiveness where I was able to release my mom from the debt of the pain. Forgiveness is like the last step, and that is so necessary because after you've processed the pain, after you've expressed your anger to the Lord, after you have trusted God to avenge, after you have been able to trade your resentment for his rest, then you get an opportunity to yield to the love required to forgive somebody. And so that's where I'm at, and that's necessary for healing.
So we are going to leave that right there. So I do have another question for you in the last one, which I think is going to be very important. And I know you're going to give a very graceful and wonderful answer for this. There is a woman or a young woman, or even if you had a daughter, they are sitting at home because I know you have two sons, but they are sitting at home right now contemplating. They're teeter tottering. They're in the door, out the door. They have one pinky toe in, one pinky toe out, thinking about getting some type of procedure, whether it's a breast augmentation, whether it's a BBL. What is your advice to them?
Mm. Well, I would say this. You have to really ask yourself, what problem do I believe this is going to solve?
Okay.
If it's a physical problem, like a literal physical problem, then, getting a physical solution makes sense because you're fixing a physical problem. However, if it's a heart problem, if it's an identity problem, if you feel like on the other side of this, I will matter, I will have worth, I would strongly ask you to just reconsider because you will have spent a whole lot of money. You will have spent a whole lot of time recovering, and on the other side of it, you will still have the same issues because, again, you just can't fix heart problems with physical uh, physical tools. And so, yeah, think about it and just consider what's driving you, what's motivating you. Um, because you don't want to get on the other side of this costly procedure and realize that the problem is still there.
Would you suggest that that person take a break from social media? Because I'm going to assume that they've been looking at tons of those types of that type of content.
Listen, I suggest people take a break from social media, whether you want a BBL or not. Like, I think I spend very little time on social media. I have somebody who actually manages my socials for me,
Okay.
for that reason,
Okay.
because a couple years ago realized I would leave social media feeling worse about my life than I did when I opened the
Yes.
apps. And
Yes.
so that is a sign that it's affecting your heart. I regularly recommend that people either
A
take a
detox.
break or a sabbatical from social media, delete your apps, and just live the life in front of you. I used to post, every time I traveled somewhere, I would post, pictures of my food. I would just constantly be posting about my life. Now, you might see 1% of my life because I just don't feel like I have pictures I've taken that I've not posted. I just don't feel like posting them. I've gotten to that place where it's like I don't need people to like my food choices. I don't need people to be impressed by where I'm at or what I'm doing. I just want to live in the moment
Yes,
and enjoy the
absolutely.
moment that I'm in. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, take a break and live the life that you're in without thinking about other people being able to experience it with you.
Do you think that if social media, because you talked about the rejection, you talked about the insecurities, and you said earlier that social media played a heavy role in your decision. Let's say social media did not exist.
Mhm.
Do you think you still would have gone through with it?
Oh, probably not. I mean,
Okay.
before
So
social media,
it
especially
was
before it
really
became a
that.
thing,
Okay.
I did not think about a BBL. I didn't know about a BBL. I had no reason. Like, I just was like, this is who I am and this is what I have, or I should say what I don't have. And I was fine with it. It was after seeing all of that that I was
Okay.
just like, oh, well, maybe I should do this because this will fix that. And it didn't. So yeah, I don't think I would have because I just wasn't even thinking about it before then.
Okay, so that was a very strong pull then. The
Yeah,
social media was a strong pull.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we are coming to the end of our conversation. Once again, I do want to thank you, but you are the CEO of the company Inside Out Leadership. Please tell the audience what it is, where they can find you, and if yourself or your company have anything coming up.
Sure. So Inside Out Leadership is designed to to create communities for high capacity women. So these are women who either are in leadership roles in the ministry or in marketplace, or women who aspire to lead in the ministry or in the marketplace. And what we do is we create environments, programs, and events that are designed to help women heal from the inside out, because there's no amount of success that you can achieve that will fill the emptiness within you if you are still carrying trauma, and if you are still carrying resentment, and you are carrying unbridled ambition that's typically driven by insecurity. And so we get to the heart of the matter. And we have a retreat coming up in 2026. You can actually register for it now. Registration is open, but it's going to be right outside of LA. And we only bring together about 150 women. We have some incredible speakers. It's 4 days and 3 nights. Lodging is included in the registration. But myself, I'll be speaking. We have Christine Kane, who's amazing. Dr. Caroline Leaf, she's a best-selling author, neuroscientist. Cent Marshall, the former CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. And it's just a great, great environment. If you're looking to connect with other women who are leading and loving the Lord, it's a place to unplug and get healed. I have that. I have another program called Ascend. I'm not currently accepting applications for it, but it is a very deep kind of discipleship intensive that I'm doing over the course of next year with a group of about 10 women. And yeah, I'm speaking and writing books and all the things. So life is busy and life is good.
And that's what I was getting ready to say. Are you still on tour?
Well, so I haven't done a tour yet, but I might as well
Okay.
be on tour because I'm somewhere new every week. It feels that way.
Okay. So, like I said before, Nona, thank you so much. I love your story. I know that your story is inspiring. Excuse me. All of your information will be down below. So will your company. If there is nothing else, I'm going to say thank you to you.